Hello, my name is Nicholas Roman Lewis, and I am the Senior Director for Shared Interest and Identity Groups at the Yale Alumni Association. On behalf of the Yale International Alliance, I am happy to welcome you to today's webinar, Serving Humanity, Reducing Suffering Through Innovation. The YIA Refugee Service Hub is a YIA partnership with the International Rescue Committee and Duet. Together, this partnership facilitates refugee settlement in the U.S., making the process of donating easier, more efficient, professional, and transparent. Today, you will hear from the thought leaders behind the initiative and hopefully leave with a better understanding of how you can have a direct positive impact on the life of a refugee. As a housekeeping note, you may ask questions and comment via YouTube. We will take questions at the end of the presentations. Our speakers today are Yale International Alliance Chair Kyle Qigong Wang, who comes to us with 4+ decades of work and travels in over 40 countries, including various leadership roles in industries, nonprofit, startup ventures, and strategic consulting activities. Kyle worked for 35 years in corporations and tech startups, including serving as CEOs in several clean tech companies and holding executive roles in Fortune 500 companies. Over the decades, Kyle has served on over a dozen corporate and nonprofit boards in several continents. He is passionate about making positive impact by mobilizing the maximum number of global citizens to address the key challenges of our time, including the unprecedented refugee crisis we face today. Reese Richmond, is a co-founder and currently serves as COO for Give Duet, a philanthropic startup designed to reimagine international asylee aid by connecting international givers, resettled refugees, and small family-run businesses on a transparent and efficient charity platform. After graduating summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Science in Biomedical Engineering from the University of Southern California in 2021, she took a gap year to work on expanding Duet's operations both in Greece and in the United States. She is now a first-year student at Yale Medical School, pursuing a Doctor of Medicine. And last but not least, we are privileged to have Nikki Smith, who is Executive Director of the International Rescue Committee in Washington. IRC Washington provides opportunities for refugees, asylees, victims of human trafficking, survivors of torture, and other immigrants to thrive in America. She has 30 years of progressively responsible professional experience with non-governmental organizations in crisis-affected countries, of which 12 years have been spent in a conflict and post-conflict setting. Nikki joined the IRC in 2003, and since then has worked in some of the organization's most sensitive situations, including managing the IRC's single largest country program, Sudan, and serving as the IRC country director in Liberia during a key moment in the peace process. Before joining the IRC, Nikki worked for almost 10 years with the Doctors Without Borders and Children's Aid, direct in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Afghanistan, Somalia, Iraq, Pakistan, and Nepal, amongst other countries. First, we will hear from Kyle. Kyle, welcome to the stage.
Thanks so much, Nicholas, and welcome everyone. I'll say a few words about the YIA and why we initiated this refugee service partnership with the two incredible partners, Duet and IRC. YIA is a social impact organization, a shared interest group of Yale Alumni Association. Our members are Yale alumni and their families, friends, and their broader network in 70 countries around the globe. That's who we are organizationally. But the reason and objective we initiated this refugee service partnership is to fulfill YIA's mission, addressing the vital issues of our time. Obviously, refugees problem is a vital issue. And to grow this partnership into a global ecosystem where the greatest number of people are given the opportunity to participate with their effort and the resources, regardless of how small it is, to make big collective impact on what I termed the global homelessness. That's 100 million refugees. Next slides, please. How we fit into this, guided by our mission here, you see very clearly, and working towards a better world for all, we inspire and energize global community and create initiatives that gather the collective strength of our community to engage with the challenges of today. In addition to our regular monthly programs, we are launching 3 practices: climate in action practice, education in action, and global crisis actions. So this refugee service partnership among 3 of us represents a key component of our global crisis action practice. Next slides, please. What we bring? First, foremost, we bring 2 incredible partners to build this platform with us, leveraging Yale community's potential and the capability to utilize this platform to solve global homelessness problem. Through refugees' specific needs identified by IRC, and through the efficient online technology and the business model pioneered by Duet, YIA brings refugee-specific needs to donor community at Yale and beyond Yale. Again, the beauty of what 3 of us can do together is to turn the small donations by each global citizen into a mass movement to help our fellow men and women in the greatest stress and the pain. Operationally, YIA helps both of our partners to source and onboard local small and medium businesses who not only receive additional revenue through this platform, but also become a catalyst of a local community building among resettled refugees and residents in the host countries. I do hope our effort will gradually, 1, make host locations more humane and refugee friendly. 2, inspire local businesses join our struggle to help these refugees. I say when this movement becomes a significant force of doing good, all of you who are attending this webinar today will be proud of this partnership and proud of yourselves by participating in it. Thank you very much.
Imagine what it's like to be a refugee. At the IRC, we don't imagine. While refugee families wait and wait, we plan.
She has been on the waiting list and no one knows how long it will take.
For the new arrival or...
This letter explains the hearing and the process, so she may have some challenges with
It will be at 6:40.
To do the airport pickup. When they finally arrive to begin their new life, our caseworkers are there to welcome and support them from day 1. Our resettlement program meets the needs of newly arrived families, like the winds from Myanmar, with the support to ease their stress. A safe home, trips to stock up on essentials, and orientation with caseworkers and volunteers so they can get up to speed on the day-to-day.
And so today we're just going to ask you questions about your family, your education, your dreams for your children.
For families like the Eunices who've arrived from Pakistan, getting kids support in school,
Which is a verb. Zane, did you want to add one more verb? To do, yes.
and after school is a priority.
First time to sing that. That's really big.
For the youth workshop, what if we put career pathways?
We help students create a solid foundation for further education so they can realize their goals.
I am going to need a volunteer at this time that wants to do a mock interview with me.
Families like the Al-Sharas get help with one of the biggest milestones,
Tamam, good.
landing that first job.
What is your availability? What days can you work?
أريد نعمل أكسب أول شيء أنا جديد هون بأمريكا.
Our programs empower refugees by helping them start small businesses.
We're going to put in the application today.
And find jobs that root them in their new communities and contribute to the fabric of America.
Days a week, you're working here hourly.
No problem.
Okay. If you want to give me permission to call the landlord if I have questions, is that okay with you?
We protect their legal rights.
Don't worry, we're not going to let anything bad happen.
And empower them to be leaders in their communities.
There are two different ways to do taxes. And this, you have to be in your mind planning to pay the proper amount. You get to make the decision, no one else.
It's a long journey from leaving your homeland and all that's familiar.
Ready? My name is Adam.
To getting a green card and then becoming a U.S. citizen with a vote that counts.
We are applying for a citizenship certificate for your children.
I know exactly how effective the United States resettlement program is.
Hello, this is Dauda.
I didn't imagine leaving Democratic Republic of Congo.
Hello, Safi. Come on in.
And landing in Boise, Idaho. I lived it.
Have a seat.
I didn't imagine that I'd become a caseworker for the International Rescue Committee.
I know what you are going through, but you'll get much support.
Yet today, here I am.
Okay, let's begin.
So next we welcome to the stage Nikki Smith, the Executive Director of the IRC.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for that welcome. I'm excited to be here and very excited to be working with Kyle and the Yale International Alliance, as well as Reese and the Duet team. I had an initial meeting some weeks ago with the team, and one of the things that I had spoken about was, I've been doing this work for a long time, and it's not often that I'm surprised. And this was such a positive surprise for me to hear about the work that Yale International Alliance has been doing. Not only does this partnership address a vital issue, but the model allows, essentially it meets the gold standard of what we want, which is allowing crisis-affected people to have agency, to have dignity. And the other aspect, which I love, is that the work that's being done, the model that's being used, also doesn't undermine the local economy. Rather, it actually boosts the local economy through supporting small businesses. So what I'm presenting on today, I hope shows you how energized I am by this. I'm now going to talk a little bit about the IRC and who we are, in addition to the video that you just saw. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we're living in really unprecedented times, and I know that this word is used quite often, but it really is. I use it to describe our last year. So to put our work in context, and conservatively speaking, there are over 100 million people displaced around the globe right now. Humanitarian needs are higher than we've ever seen. And I say this with the experience of 30 years. People always ask, what are the reasons for displacement? And there are multiple reasons for displacement. Why do people flee their homes? And some of the reasons are war, conflict, political upheaval, persecution that they might be experienced for gender or sexual identity or for race or religion. Climate-induced disasters as well have caused displacement. So right now we're living in the aftermath or actually during the process of two cataclysmic events. 76,000 Afghans entered the US in September and August of 2021. This was the largest mass evacuation since the Vietnam War. The conflict in Ukraine has created the fastest displacement crisis in Europe since World War II. These issues are not just impacting the United States, there are huge effects that are being felt across the world. Next slide. So who is the IRC? Well, the IRC works in direct response to these global crises. We are actually founded at global crisis, at the time of a global crisis, which was in 1933. We were founded at the request of Albert Einstein in response to the huge displacement that happened during World War II. So ever since 1933, we've responded to the world's most pressing humanitarian disasters. So let's read our mission. IRC helps people affected by humanitarian crises to survive, recover, and rebuild their lives. We do that by working in 40 countries around the world, and we're very distinctive in the fact that we also work to scale in Europe and the United States. And in the United States, we have 28 offices in the United States where we provide programming. Next slide. So who is the IRC in Seattle? I call us the best kept secret in Seattle. And actually, I will now say Washington, because we've recently expanded into Spokane in this calendar year. So the work that we do, as you saw from the video, is that we help welcome and resettle refugees. But in addition to the more than 25,000 refugees that we've welcomed into Washington from more than 35 countries around the world, we also help other individuals who have need, and those include asylum seekers, asylees, survivors of human trafficking and harm, as well as other forms of immigrant. We're actually one of 9 resettlement agencies who are mandated by the US government to participate and contracted to work in resettlement, and we are the only secular agency. Next slide. As you saw from the video, you saw some of the work that we do on the resettlement side. I just want to emphasize that, the resettlement work takes 90 days. That's how much funding that we get contracted to do. So all of those services that we're asked to provide, everything from meeting somebody at the airport, helping them get a job, helping them find a home, enrolling in school, getting medical benefits, helping them with cultural orientation, all of that is done in 90 days, which is really nothing. And it's really insufficient to help families build their lives here in the United States, particularly considering the trauma that they've experienced. So what we've recognized is that we need to build support programs, wraparound programs and services so that we can continue providing critical programs and support to families who need them. And we do this through this very long list of services that you see here. But I want to add also that it's not just refugees that benefit from, or newly arrived refugees rather, that benefit from this type of programming. As I mentioned, it's the other clients that we serve, whether they are survivors of human trafficking or asylum seekers. And we have extensive experience, and we do so with a community partnership model. And we're very, very fortunate that we have the partnerships of some donors and our community. And in particular, we value the community partners such as Yale International Alliance and Duet, who you'll be hearing from later on in the presentation. Next slide. So I come from an operations background. And so I will tell you that operations are really a critical foundation for the work that we do. Everything from supply chain to receiving donations. It's really, really important for us to have solid operations to support the programs and the families. Refugees come in with practically nothing, literally 20 kilos each. That is all that they travel with to rebuild their life in this country. And as you know, that's when you go on vacation and you take 20 kilos that's 40 pounds. Are really taking that just for a couple of weeks. Well, this is for the rest of their lives. And they're coming into the United States under the poverty line. And so every bit of support that we have, we really rely upon to help families build their foundation of their life. For example, cell phones are really a critical need for our families. Not only are the cell phones a safety line for women and seniors who might be at their home and feeling isolated, but there are ways and means for families to remain in touch with their loved ones who will be left behind in the country that they fled. Clothing, we take it for granted, but many of our clients come from warmer climates, and they come into Washington or they come into whatever state they're arriving in, and they're often experiencing winter for the first time. And so that adjustment in temperature is a harsh reality. We provide basic housing supplies, and that also comes out of some funds that they receive, which is very minimal. And so everything that we get allows us to kit out the families in a way that allows them dignity. Like, for example, a rice cooker, I'm horrible at cooking rice. So a rice cooker for me is an essential item in the kitchen. And we are able to provide these types of essential items through the partnerships that we get. We have a dedicated team to donations and get donations to clients, something that we've really honed over the years. I get very excited about supply chain and inventory management. So excuse me for gushing a little bit about those things. We make sure that we're getting client donations to clients that really need them, that have an essential vulnerability that needs extra support. This past year, we took on a warehouse, and we now have an inventory specialist dedicated to process these donations. This means that we can get a car seat right from day one to a family so that they can be picked up from the airport in a safe way. We also have volunteers who help with housing setups, which means that when we supply couches, beds, linens, pots, pans, everything that the family can need, we're building their new home. And a home is really important because these are families who are homeless. They have lost their home. They've had their homes ripped away from them. And so the first home that they have in the United States means so much more. It's more than a building. It's actually a sense of safety and stability. This is one of the reasons I'm so excited and glad to be partnering with the Yale International Alliance and with Duet, because this process that will be explained really helps streamline and make it more efficient and effective. For me, that means less time and effort for staff, which means that we can be doing other work. And that other work will mean spending more time with clients, helping them problem solve. So it's less about the process on moving stuff, and it really is about spending quality time with clients so that we can put them in, give them their own agency. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the questions and answer period.
Thank you, Nikki. We'll bring you back in a little bit, but right now we will hear from Reese Richmond, who is the co-founder and currently serves as a COO for Give Duet.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Reese, and I am a co-founder of Duet. So as soon as we get the slides up here, but I'll kind of just start talking. At Duet, we have built a new model of philanthropy. So it has been implemented across borders, cultures, and languages. We believe that by involving the local economy as a key stakeholder, providing radical transparency to donors, and giving those in need the dignity of choice, we have discovered a new dynamic model of philanthropy in the 21st century. Next slide, please. At Duet, we allow donors to pay for the exact items that vulnerable populations need in order to rebuild their lives. Next slide, please. So since 2019, Duet has been fully operational in Greece, and we've served over 50 refugee families with over 1,000 items donated. This has produced well over $100,000 in direct revenue for the local businesses on various islands in Greece. And you can check out our current operations at giveduet.org. In Greece, we've seen Duet not only provide direct support for refugees and local economies, but also integrate communities, helping people rebuild their lives and realize their potential. We are thrilled to leverage Duet's technology to power the upcoming collaboration between the Yale International Alliance and IRC Seattle. Next slide, please. Let me show you how it works. Meet the Kavari family, a Duet refugee client. So members of the Kavari family will browse the local stores that we partner with. Then they will take a photo of what they need, and then they will directly upload that photo through our client app. This way, we avoid making assumptions about what the family needs and wants. Because sometimes when other people make these assumptions, they can get some of it wrong. So we want to make sure that it's exactly what the family needs. Next slide, please. So then on our website, our donors can meet our Duet clients and fund their requested items. Next slide, please. After we receive a donation, we send the money directly to the local store and we send a pickup code to the client. Upon pickup, the client sends us a confirmation photo, which we share with permission with the donor to close the loop. They often include a touching thank you note as well. Next slide, please. So we found that in our system, the Duet system, donors experience a more transparent and instantly gratifying way of giving, knowing exactly what they're funding and what they're making possible for families. We also find that these small majority family-owned stores receive additional revenue, which really helps, especially in a setting of a refugee crisis. And then thirdly, clients, refugee families that we are helping, receive the items they truly need in a more human and dignified way. But our impact goes deeper than simply the dollars donated. By creating interactions between local store owners and refugee families with every item selection or pickup, we've started to see a significant emotional shift in both parties, pointing towards further integration of the local community. Refugees feel safe shopping in Duet stores, and store owners feel emotional connections to the Duet families. We've even seen store owners become friends with the refugees that come into their shop on a weekly basis. Next slide, please. We are very excited to replicate this success that we've had globally in Seattle with the Yale International Alliance alongside IRC Seattle and our network of virtual and in-person stores that we are onboarding in Seattle. Next slide, please. In closing, I would like to share this message that we received from one of our first ever refugee beneficiaries. So Faramars, one of our first refugee families, told us at the end when he was actually moving out of Greece to Germany, he told us, Duet has given me the ability to get back on my own 2 feet so that I can give back to those around me. I'm happier now than I ever was before. Thank you for helping us do good better at Duet.
Thank you, Reese. So let me bring everyone back to the stage now. Thank you all for your presentations. That was very helpful for me and hopefully for the individuals watching. So right now, we're just going to dig a little deeper and have you, converse amongst yourselves with some of the questions. I would like to remind the audience that you can submit questions through the functions in YouTube. So the whole topic of this webinar is reducing suffering through innovation. It's the innovation point that we want to get into, but there's also little personal stories that, well, not little, they're personal stories behind each individual. So what I'd like to know is, how have the local communities historically responded to the needs of arrivals? I think that's something, Nikki, you can probably take, but everyone should be able to chime in.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Nicholas. So I've had the opportunity to, be in a local community, whether that's over internationally, for example, in Uganda, receiving large influxes of individuals from Sudan or from Rwanda when individuals came in from Congo, as well as being in the United States in Washington and receiving this year 76,000 Afghans coming into the country. That was a huge amount of volume of people. And, I can really tell you that regardless of the community or the location, people are amazing. They really open their hearts and open their homes to those experiencing harm. And, it really humbles me when I see that, whether it's somebody who has absolutely nothing living in a village in northern Uganda, who recognizes that somebody is in harm's way and recognizes that they have a role, that humanitarian impulse to help, and they will share their meager supplies to this other family fleeing home. And then we bring it to Washington State, where we had, so many unprecedented amount of individuals phoning up saying, how can I help? What can I do? Can I help set up a home? Can I go to the airport and pick up people? Nicholas, it's just really remarkable where we see this compassionate outpouring of human beings wanting to help one another, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of.
That's good to hear, particularly in times like now, that there's still people open to receiving and helping. And that's where we get to this technology being able to ease that burden. So Kyle and Reese, why is this partnership different from traditional post-settlement relief efforts?
Reese, do you want to go? Do you want me to go? Lady first.
Yeah. Sure. I can kind of take a stab at it and then pass it over to you. So I think primarily what we're interested in doing is kind of harnessing that human impulse to help, as Nikki explained so well, and just really trying to think about how do we tweak it a little bit to work as best as possible for refugee families. So kind of a duet, what we have been thinking over the years that we've been innovating is how do we build the systems that help people help better, kind of. So how do we really channel that human impulse to help and that human impulse to know exactly what you're getting. So to run out to Target and buy everything for a new refugee family and send it along. That's not always possible if you're at a distance or if you don't know exactly what the refugee family needs. So that's kind of where we come in, is trying to really add that technological, innovation and make it more and more possible at scale. And then I think YIA is, really resonating with that as well. So I'll pass it back over to Kyle.
Just summarizing a few points. That's well said already, Reese. You left me nothing to say more. Yeah, it's a proven technology, created efficient. Actually, we're creating an efficient marketplace, believe it or not, where refugees' needs and donors' support are met precisely. There's no bulk donations and no unwanted goods, right? That's one differentiator. The other one is we reduce administrative and inventory management costs for IRC and for all relief agencies that are willing to work with this model. So that's another one. The duet model is giving differently. This is really an innovation in the business model. This is a multi-layered value added to everyone involved: refugees, businesses, donors, and eventually local community around the globe, right? The other differentiation, it's obvious, it's the IRC's monumental work in the world is well known. And Duet's innovation is already known in Greece. Then we wanted this thing to prevail in the United States. And plus, Yale's reputation in the world. And the three of us put together, we amplify the impact. So that's what I have to say.
Thanks, Kyle and Reese. So for you all are on the front line, so kind of the intimate details of what goes on. But what are some of the barriers that refugees face as they arrive in the U.S. with respect to just getting the basics that they need? I mean, for many people, it's we watch the news, we feel a certain way, as Reese was saying. There's this human impulse, but then we turn our TV off, right?
Right.
So, what are some of those barriers that they're facing?
Yeah, I can jump off with this. I say that the resettlement period is the second most traumatic experience that a family will have in their lifetimes. The first being obviously when they were forced to flee in the first place. Mm-hmm. I think that it's just so overwhelming. And when I try to explain it to people, I say, imagine that your family were forced to leave their home and go to another country where you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, it's not by choice. You've had to do this. You can never return to your home country. You're living in exile, which is a word that we don't really use anymore, but refugees really live in exile. If they return, their life will be in danger. And that choice, that agency is taken away from them. And there's a lot of powerlessness in this whole process, which is one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of the duet model as well, because it gives agency and power and choice back to the families. And so not only do they have an overwhelming experience where everything is new. But then it really starts to settle in, this is their new life. And it really takes a year, upward of a year, for a family to start to feel settled and understand, you know, how is it, like I've been here in the US for 14 years.
We got a little bit, Nikki, but I understand what she was saying is that there's this intensity that goes, and it's a year process. So we're going to give her a minute to come back. Fortunately, we have a question from the audience that I'm gonna put up, and I think that this may can take. So can you expand on the interaction between the refugee and the donor? What might this be like? What kind of information? Hey, Nikki's back.
I'm so sorry. The Comcast, what are you doing to me this morning? I'm not sure what bit you missed off on. Where I stopped talking.
We all understand that we're in the virtual world, but you were talking about the year process and really that this trauma that people, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for that. And so it's, you know, it's rebuilding their life, rebuilding their home, you know, and it's finding they've got to have their first job, you know, so that's traumatic in itself, especially because their first job is just an entry-level job often. And, you know, getting their kids into school, understanding the difference about the school system in America versus the country they've come from, the different medical system, you know, everything is new, everything is different, and they don't have their family around them. You know, the families that we work with often come from the extended family system. It's not the nuclear family. So this is the first time often where grandma isn't around, you know, aunties aren't around, cousins aren't around. And that's a traumatic loss for many families. Suddenly their children is the nuclear family of mom and dad and the kids, right? And so often, so they don't have any support, like babysitters, like childcare is a huge issue here in Washington, trying to access childcare. And often it's really difficult and unaffordable. So there are so many challenges in that first year and so much trauma. And then, of course, just lastly to say, Nicholas, is that their family's still in harm's way, right? So, for example, and I will say this about my team members as well, they still have family in Afghanistan. They still have family in the Ukraine, you know, so every day when they're watching the news or having those WhatsApp calls, they're hearing and they're experiencing that trauma, but they're doing it through the lens of survivor guilt, right? And so it is an incredibly problematic period, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so everything that we try to build toward and these partnerships and this support that we get is just that moment of saying, not only do we stand with you in solidarity, but we're here to allow you to have choice and the agency, because that we know that you need to hold on to some aspects of power.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's take the question from the audience. I'll pull it back up. I think this is more of a tech question, but can you expand on the interaction between the refugee and the donor? What might this be like? What kind of information does the donor expect the individuals to share with them?
Most definitely, I can kind of take a start on this one and explain. So we're still figuring out exactly how this looks in the US. Our first priority is privacy. And as Nikki mentioned, some of the families, especially in the most recent wave, do have some safety concerns. So we want to make sure that that is our number one priority. On the Duet side, usually what we are prioritizing is the way that we confirm that an item has been delivered, since we do kind of use decentralized in the sense that refugees or a advocate on behalf of a refugee family is picking up the item themselves. So we want to make sure that that item gets to where it is intended to go, and that that whole interaction is confirmed kind of on both ends. So what this looks like to us is that we have the store confirm the item has been picked up or has been delivered. And then we also have the refugee family or an advocate for the refugee family confirm on the other end as well. So this can either look like a photograph of just the item, which then we share with the donor, or we're exploring if there are ways that we can use photographs that maybe aren't identifying. So a family can send a photo without faces that indicates the item has been received. Or what we really loved, and this is up to the refugee family themselves, but sometimes they will send thank you notes. So that's kind of something I mentioned in the presentation that has been incredibly thoughtful. So kind of no safety concerns, just a quick handwritten thank you that we deliver to the donor to kind of loop the end of that donation. But then on the previous side, so before the donation happens, it's a varying level of information. It's kind of what the family is comfortable sharing. So that might be as little as how many members are in the family, and then also if the family feels comfortable sharing potentially favorite foods, favorite activities, what age children are, really just trying to find thoughtful information that doesn't put any privacy concerns. So it's a big range, I guess, is the final answer, but we do try to at least confirm with that photo, just so that everyone knows that the system is working as intended.
Great, great. So I understand that this can be overwhelming, the varying needs, and people are coming from different places in the world, all different levels. But what are some of the hardest things to actually procure for people, for and folks coming in? And what kind? This is a twofold. Where are there shortfalls in your funding? Because we want to cut to the chase. We want people to use Duet. We want to get this flowing so that, this is one way that you can help in this crisis, right? By actually getting goods and services to people. But let's talk about some of those. What's difficult? What are some of your things that people really need, and some of the shortfalls in the funding?
Do you want me to start with that one?
Yeah,
something for perfect. All. Thank you. So, digital. We live in an online world. Everything is online. Schooling, job seeking, benefits, everything is online. And, I think that interestingly, a lot of donors in particular feel like digital, whether it's a phone or a device, is a luxury. It's actually not. It's a necessity. Yeah. Right. And I think we do need to work with donors so that they understand that everything is done so much online now that families really need this, and they need more than one device, where it can be like, oh, you've got a phone, that's fine. No, because the breadwinner, which is often the head of the household, the husband, will go to work. And then the mom is at home without any means of communication. And so we need more than one phone. We need more than one device, so that it can be, so that life can continue in the household. And so, the tech products, digital inequity is really a real thing. And that it creates a greater divide between newly arrived families and refugees, and particularly children, youth, young people. And, we've seen that huge divide in the past year, and particularly during COVID as well, where everything shifted to the home. And it just makes learning loss is very real as well within refugee families. And so if you've got learning, because the summers are so long and then the language is lost and so on and so forth. So if they don't have ways and means to remain online, remain engaged, have some classes and so on and so forth, then it creates even more divides with individuals. So we've seen that firsthand experience. And as I mentioned, the cell phones are really, really important. They become an essential safety plan, a lifeline. And that's how we see it in our office, in our team, is that a cell phone is a safety requirement. And so having support in getting those things is really helpful. Mm-hmm. I can talk about the donor aspects too. I have multiple gray hairs, Nicholas, trying to find the funding for our program. Anyone who knows, when you get government funding, you never get enough to run your program. So every bit of stuff that we get, every support that we get allows us to not just expand services, but pay a livable wage to our team and provide incentives to clients to be engaged in programming. And, if we're asking them to do things during their workday, we need to reward that. That's an equity perspective that's really important and inclusive.
Exactly. Research, or Kyle, do you want to add anything to that?
I think the Duet is fantastic clearinghouse in a sense. They have an ability to connect these stores with donors and also have the ability to have a bulk purchase. I saw the cell phone listed or the little calculator handheld and all that on the website. Actually, the price was heavily reduced. Is that correct, Reese? Yeah, it's wonderful. Because of that, can you imagine that impact? So I think the most important thing we understand is both willingness is there. The donor is intended to donate this particular thing, right? And that is something that refugees specifically needed. Both intents are there. It's not like, oh, I'm a forcer, that none of that. So this is another beauty of this partnership. I like to point out. Yeah.
We have a question. Another question has come in. I'll get to it in a second. But Reese, what is the feedback that you're getting from the donors with this?
Definitely a large range. So I'll try to pick out some highlights. But I think over the past 2 years that we've been heavily operational in Greece, and then also briefly, we've done some work in California as well, is we're seeing a wide range of donor engagement where there hasn't been donor engagement before. So what we love about Duet is, and as donors will see as we add more and more items to the site as part of this collaboration, is that there is a large range. So at the more expensive end, you might have those transformational digital products that really do make a large difference in the home. But on the other end, you have daily routine household items as simple as paper towels. And so being able to engage donors at all different price points and willingness to give is something that we have seen as transformational, especially for Gen Z, my generation, being able to get in and maybe have their first donation experience. So we've seen some really great feedback there. And then going back to basically just the awesome experience of knowing exactly what you're donating has been kind of our most positive feedback, I'd say, from the beginning, is saying, oh, I love that I was able to donate a jacket. And I know that that jacket went to this family, and that's helping them get through, not too severe Seattle winter, but still, you want the weatherproof gear to get through. So being able to have that experience as a donor, saying I had this specific impact, is something that I don't think a lot of other organizations are doing at this moment, just due to that.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to wait to get the annual report to see, where did my donation, how did it have an impact? And if you're not a transformational donor giving, thousands or millions, you may not get that warm fuzzy feeling. But, to your point, Reese, and what Duet is doing, like a specific need being met, which I think is wonderful. So we have a question from the audience, George Abdelnour. How do you make the hard decision of prioritizing among the world's multiple crises and the refugee crises that they produce?
That is such a great question. I love it. So actually, IRC has a crisis analysis team, actually part of our emergency response unit. And every year we produce a watch list. I'll be glad to drop a link in or share a link, Nicholas, after the presentation. We have a watch list for 2022. And so what the team does is they have 66 qualitative and quantitative indicators that they utilize so that they can compile a list of 20 countries that need to be monitored. And sometimes we're present in those countries and sometimes we're not present in those countries. And those countries, some of those countries have been on the list for a while, like Yemen, because the situation in the country is not improving, Syria, obviously. And so that really helps us. We really do need data to help drive our work. And we spend a lot of time looking at that data so that we can use our resources in the best possible way, because there are so many things happening. But where we need to intervene is, is there a need, right? Is there an unmet need that we can address? Because there are obviously crises that happen in the world, but if you have a functioning government and you have a rapid, robust response from that government or civil society, then IRC is not necessary in that space. But, there are plenty of countries that don't have that luxury or have an overwhelmed government, and that's where we can come in and help. And we do that through a community partnership approach so that we can support civil society in the way that we operate. Thank you. Great question, George. I love it.
So we have about 10 more minutes left. And I want to make sure we give everyone kind of final parting moments, or that's not the right word, but you understand what I'm saying. But there's been something that's been touched upon. It was in the IRC video. It was also Reese and Duet talked about like dignity, like this allows people to have their dignity. And Nikki, you said something about, there's a toll. I'm thinking of staff, like how, with regard to mental health, and how is this technology or just this awareness of the toll that it takes on doing this type of work? I mean, Nikki, just reading your bio, I'm like, that's a human toll, just a mental, just to be in these spaces. So clearly Duet is looking at this from a tech standpoint, is challenging it. Nikki, you're frontline people and all of that. Kyle, you're bringing these partnerships. What is the mental health of, I guess my question is like, how do you deal with that? Because that's very, right?
Yeah, that's really, thank you for asking that, because it's, mental health is often a taboo subject, and yet compassion fatigue, is very real. Yeah. And particularly because the stories are a lot and people want to share their stories, as they should, because that's part of the healing process. And so we have a duty of care that we focus on very carefully, and we have special support to our employees. And I will say this, Nicholas, is that one of the things that's most precious for us is time. Mm-hmm. And what the Duet system allows is it allows time back to our colleagues. So that time can then be spent taking vacation. Because if you have, which is what I talked about, overstretched, overburdened systems, and I'll just use an example in why this last year was really difficult. We had 130% growth in our personnel, but we had a 400% growth in the clients that we serve. So that math just doesn't work, right? You're basically saying we're giving you 4 times the amount of work to each person, and that's a lot to carry. And so when we can kind of cut back on where we look at the systems and processes that can cut back on that time and effort, it means that we're giving time back to people. Right? And so when we can say, all right, we're giving you 10 minutes back on your Zoom call, everyone's like, yay, I could use that 10 minutes for taking a wellness check or something like that. So, for me, it's really important. Resilience, building resilience in people, teaching them to seek help when they need it, recognizing that they need to find healthy habits, whether that's doing yoga, going for a walk, all of those things to help process themselves and treat, because
Yeah, I think we may have lost just a minute there, but okay. Reese, maybe you can jump in there, because I will note that you are also a first-year medical student, so these things are probably top of your mind. Thank you, Nikki, for that. We had the last little bit, but we
sorry. Comcast is like the one day of the week that it's not working, right?
It's okay. But Reese, maybe you can jump in there.
Yeah, so I think echoing everything that Nikki said, very well put. I think ultimately it's a very difficult It's a difficult problem area for sure. And it's definitely something that I think in turn, a whole different topic definitely helps me find my passion for medical school and is why I am here today, some of the work that I've done with Duet. But I think it's ultimately kind of how you take the things that you see and if that inspires you to action or not. And so I think the really great thing about everyone in this room, and I'm sure everybody listening, is that everyone has a bias towards action of seeing the problems and making sure that we can be a part of the solution.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have about just 5 more minutes. If you, Nikki and Reese, want to give some last comments, and then we'll head to Kyle to wrap it up for us. Let's start with Reese. Give us your final comments.
Of course, yeah. So this has been incredible. Very, very excited to help empower refugees along YAA and IRC Seattle. So I'd love to invite listeners, it's already been said, but to giveduet.org. We have a banner right at the top of the screen that should help direct you to the Seattle Hub main page where you can see some of our initial items. More and more are going to be added in the upcoming days. And then also if anybody has any specific questions, again, about how Duet works, you can reach me and the entire Duet team at hello@giveduet.org.
Nikki.
I just have huge appreciation to Kyle and Reese and yourself, Nicholas, as well as everybody who is, participating in this call. I recognize that there are many incredible organizations out there doing incredible work. And, the fact is that there are many, many needs in our world today. And so I'd like to thank you for this partnership and this opportunity. And, and especially on behalf of the clients, the participants that we serve, we really are grateful. And whatever you do to support will and does make a huge difference in the lives of people, vulnerable people in the United States. And you're creating such an incredible warm welcome to new families. So I really want to just say thank you very much.
Thank you. So Kyle, we'll give you the final words.
Okay, let me do a quick final closing. I just want to give a few thanks. And I'd like to thank my colleague, Nikki Smith and Reese Richmond in this event and for their insights and leadership that paved the way for the future success of this partnership. I also like to thank the working staff behind the scene in these 3 organizations and also Yale Alumni Association and Nicholas for their support. Without all this hard work among yourselves, and this webinar would not be possible. Finally, I thank everyone who took the time in your busy weekly schedule to attend this event. I do hope you are inspired to help us create ever greater awareness of this partnership and also to get involved with us and enable us in whatever way you can. So be a part of this worthy movement in serving humanity and reducing suffering through innovation. Thank you very much and good wishes to all of you.
And thank you, Kyle, Reese, and Nikki, again for your time. On behalf of the Yale Alumni Association, we thank you because at Yale, part of our mission is to make sure that we're having a positive impact in the world, particularly with our leaders out there. So thank you again. And just for the audience, this webinar will live on YouTube, so you can watch it, share it, look at all the links, and we please hope that you actually give. Thanks a lot and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.